Okay, so the pull function that you see here is not the same we have in the final version. And we have to do two changes to this version we have here. The first is easy, the second not so easy. Let's start with the easy one. You can notice that the pull function is actually doing two different things, two different responsibilities. The first is to fetch the board. The second is to render it. So here we are fetching the board from the server. Then we are rendering it. These are two independent concerns. So let's extract a function that does just the rendering. So what we do here is we grab this code and we call render board. Now this render function is the code we wish we had. So we are creating this other function called render that takes the board as an argument and does the rest of the thing that we cut from before. And board was the only variable that was necessary here, so that's why it's the only argument. And now this is the same code as before, we just refactored it. And it's complaining here that this variable can be inlined, so yeah, let's do that. And now this version is closer to the one you have. Now the second thing we need to do to make this pull function look like the version you have is this window.setTimeout here. Remember what I said during lecture, we never want to wait for anything. So this setTimeout thing is just setting an event handler for an event that happens 2 seconds from now. But now again, we are using that whole continuation passing style of writing functions because we are seeing what function we want to run later. We wish for something that could use a wait. In fact, this is already an asynchronous function. But there is no window.setTimeout that returns a promise, so we cannot use async await in this case. The reason it doesn't have anything that works with async await, it doesn't return a promise, is that window.setTimeout is an old API, old like XML HTTP request I was mentioning, that is the old version of fetch. Now this old API has no modern counterpart. There is no modern version of window.setTimeout. So we'll have to write one ourselves. Let's call this function sleep. And sleep will take as an argument the duration, for how long it needs to sleep. Okay? Now I said that this needs to return a promise. So I can say return new promise. But there is a shorter way of writing this. When all the function does is it has a single expression and it returns right away, I don't need to put the braces around it and I don't need the return keyword. This is a shorter way of writing the same thing. Okay, so that is just a different notation. But anyway, now that we have this promise, how are you going to use it to call the window.setTimeout thing? Well, remember how this works. A promise is going to be returned by the sleep function, and whoever is calling the sleep function is awaiting on that. So, for instance, in this case, I'm going to await for the sleep function for 2 seconds. And then later, I'm going to do something. In this case, I want to call pull. So I'll just call pull. And then I can get rid of the window.setTimeout thing here. This is the code I want to write. But in order to be able to write this code, I need to have some way of letting this promise know what it needs to do next. So here, I want this to mean, oh, this await thing means, oh, stop what you're doing now, go call this function, the function will do whatever it needs to do, and when it's ready, it's going to come back here and execute the rest of this function. So I need some way of getting the rest of this function to execute later. So here, the promise constructor takes as an argument a function that takes as an argument what is usually called resolve. Now, resolve is a function itself. And it might be hard to wrap your mind around this the first time you see it, but resolve is a function. And I can call the resolve function because the resolve function represents the rest of the computation, the rest of the things you need to do after a wait is over. So in this case, the resolve here would be poll. It would be the rest of the thing. Now, what do I do with resolve? Again, I'm using the trick of not putting the braces. So I'm just doing it like this without the braces, and it's going to return. So what I want here is to do the window.set timeout. And the duration is easy. The duration was given here. But the resolve thing, the resolve is what I want to do next. Well, when I'm done waiting the duration, what I want to do is resume the computation. I want to come back here and do the rest of this, effectively calling poll. So what I want to do here in this case is to call resolve. So with that, we have a sleep function we can use with the await construct. And the sleep function is really just wrapping the window.set timeout, the old API, into the new API that is capable of returning promises. The intent here is that we want to wrap these old APIs as low level as possible, and then we never call them again. We never call set timeout again. We only use sleep from here on. And this is what I want you to do in the homework, by the way. Just use sleep. It's already given in the file. So don't write window.set timeout by hand. Let's see if this still works in the browser. And it does. It fetches something, it waits for 2 seconds and fetches again, and waits for 2 seconds and fetches again, and so on. And you can notice that I removed the sleep on the server side, so it's now responding super fast. And in fact, because it's doing that, I can lower this limit to 200 milliseconds. Let's refresh, and this is the behavior you see. It's doing many, many fetches. In fact, this is not a great idea. We are going to see why in a later video, but not this next one. In the next video, I want to take you to a lighter subject. Remember in lecture when I told you not to use the keyword var to define variables, but I didn't tell you why? Well, that's the subject of the next video.